about coping strategies. So, starting with attitude, because we do have that chemical connection, those neurotransmitters. Now, you were warned that I teach philosophy, so I'm going to pull up all these old wise guys for you. But Seneca said, like I said, nothing new under the sun. A man is as miserable as he thinks he is. Now, think of people that you know. Everything in their life is just god awful. But where do they learn it? You know, I got to be honest with you, I was really very lucky. I had a mom and a maternal grandmother who I lived with who were incredibly optimistic women. And they went through tough times. They went through the Great Depression, they went through the loss of spouse, they both went through the loss of children. Both my mom and my grandmother lost children. But there was something about them that no matter what seemed to go on, they just kind of seemed to keep moving forward. They just seemed to keep picking themselves up. And that's what they instilled in me when I was very young. That no matter what I came up against, if I just kind of kept myself forward moving, if I took a look at things and thought, all right, I'm not going to let this situation define me, I'm going to find a way, I'll be able to progress. Nowadays, we call that resilient optimism. And the difference, why we call this resilient optimism, you know that typical, how do you tell an optimist from a pessimist? Optimist what? Sees the glass half full, pessimist half empty. The resilient optimist looks at that glass and says, it's both. Because that's how life is. That's how life experiences are. We have half full moments and we have half empty moments. And what differentiates them is they take a look at those half empty life experiences. And instead of going into, oh, and awful, they ask themselves the questions. What do I learn from this? What's the valuable negative information in this that becomes the body of what I can work with, that's going to help me rise up more steady and more resolute in what I do, so that if this circumstance comes my way, I can deal with it because I've thought about it and I can kind of figure out how. They don't see failures as things that stop them, but they see them as I like to think of it as the first action in learning. What do you learn from that? So that's my takeaway that's going to move me forward. If you've got an attitude that's working against you, you can take small steps to start to change that. You start by looking back and saying, where does this come from? Where did I learn it? What's the habit here that's not serving me? And how can I start to change it? Recognition of it is the first huge step that we can take. And then to stop that negative thinking and to use these next skills and attitudes of resilience I'm going to talk about. That mind-body connection again. When we manage our attitudes and our stress levels, what happens then is we control that neurochemical transmission. That's why people who are very resilient can deal with illnesses better, they can resist illnesses better, they can cope with their adversity, they recover quicker. I mean, just think back, folks. Think back to just the last couple of weeks. We've had the second anniversary of the Boston Marathon bombing. How many of you saw that woman, I think it was like a week or a week and a half ago now, who was dancing on the finish line the week after the race? She was a dancer who lost both her legs in that bombing. And there she was, dancing on her prosthetic legs. That's resilience. That's the thing that says, yes, knocks me down, but I am going to find a way to keep on going. Managing emotions is critical. Back to Seneca. Anger is an acid that can do more to harm the vessel in which it's stored than to anything on which it's poured. You know some angry people? Eating away. You know, we say that anger eats away at us. It does. And it can permeate us if we're around it. If we allow, and that's the operative word there, if we choose to allow it to get to us. Choice is always ours. we can take it in, or we can just let them rant, let them do it and say, this does not have to define who I am. This does not have to define my life. I'm not going to buy into it. I'm not going to get sucked into it. And people often suck us into that negativity because their lives, if you really think about it, are incredibly out of control. So the only control they have is domineering behavior, nasty behavior, making everybody else around them miserable to bring them down where they are.